everyone, I'm Autumn.
And I'm Aravis.
And this is Loving the Spectrum. If you're new to our channel, we put out videos once a week, generally on Fridays, sometimes on the weekends. We cover content based on our own experiences as queer non-binary autistics, and we make this content for other autistics, LGBTQ+ folks, and anyone else that's simply here to learn.
This means that we're happy to interact with our audience members that are here to learn, but we'll ultimately prioritize the voices of those in our communities.
If this sounds like the place for you, then subscribe for more of our content. We're thinking about creating a podcast to upload the same content in another format so that people can listen on the go. So I'm going to be working on that, and hopefully I'll be able to get that up in the next few weeks.
We've also created a link tree so that it's easier to stay connected across all of our channels. If you're able to contribute financially to help support us and the continued creation of our content, you can donate to us directly through our link tree. It'll be the first link when you click on the link tree. Since we are both disabled and unemployed, it is difficult for us to support ourselves, and we are both currently relying on family.
We both really want and need more financial independence, so if you can support us in any way, it would really be greatly appreciated. April is also Autism Awareness Month, so if you can donate directly to autistics, that's the best use of your actual funds.
A lot of autistic people, especially autistic adults, not that autistic children usually have much of a choice, we don't actually support many of the autistic organizations that currently exist, so it's a safer bet just to find autistic creators or small businesses and donate your funds directly to them.
So today's video will be about autistic and ADHD traits in childhood. So we'll be sharing stories from our own childhood.
With all that being said, let's get to the video.
Yeah, like for me, like jokes was like another big thing. Like we talked about sarcasm a bit earlier, but at one point, like this was a combination of like me trying to understand humor and also just my very intense OCD, which is now like a part of autism. It's like
been reclassified.
Yeah. Literally every night I would get home from school, I would go on FML, which was like this website called Fuck My Life, where people would just like share funny things that happened in their day that were just like bad and like funny. Yeah. So I would like go and read all of that, so everything that had been posted in the last 24 hours on the entire website. I would watch all of the YouTube videos that I had subscribed to in their entirety. I would scroll through my entire Tumblr feed, had to look through everything and go through liking and reblocking as I went. Even though my page wasn't even popular.
Even if they didn't want to do it.
Even if I didn't want to do
it. Like I desperately want to do this.
No, it's like I would be
up. This is a task that I have to fucking do.
Like I would be up until 2 a.m. knowing that I would have to wake up at 4:30 a.m. for a swim practice. Like,
brutal.
I would literally be up being like, I just want to go to sleep. When does the Tumblr end? When does it end? Like, I would just be like so exhausted, and then I would also go on to like joke websites. I would find like a new joke website and I would be like, okay, well tonight I'm gonna read all of the dumb blonde jokes. Okay, tonight I'm gonna read all of the Chuck Norris jokes.
Jesus.
Like I would make myself go through every single like tab on each freaking joke website I could find to like try and understand like humor more and like how to be funny and how to get people to like me. Yeah. Especially when dirty jokes where it became more of a thing in like 7th and 8th grade. I remember like a few kids would like sit around at recess and be like, oh, I want to hear the new dirty joke I heard, and I would literally just go through and like all these fucking joke websites just trying to like, oh, so hard.
So cute.
Yeah, for me in terms of special interests, like the medical one was the first main one, and then it switched pretty much immediately into social justice once I started learning about that, and that has been literally the biggest one, still continuing till now.
Oh, this one's super random, but I remember a lot of my mom's friends would just like call me an old soul a lot, which is a weird thing to write down, to add in as like a childhood autistic trait, but like just general like comments on emotional maturity I think are a really common thing for neurodivergent kids who've kind of learned not to vocalize their emotions. I'm still trying to figure out how to piece all that stuff together, but like yeah. So sensory stuff, I was talking about how reading became a pretty big coping mechanism for that. Oh, yeah, okay, so as a kid, I got chronic migraines. I don't know how often they happened, but I do remember that they happened, and I remember it being a really awful time. I would wake up, it would always be in the morning. I would wake up with the crippling headache, and it would just be like, I would be very, very sensitive to light, especially. It would just be like piercing pain in my head if there was a bright light, and sound was included in that, and it was pretty much, I would just have to sleep for the next couple hours or whatever until it passed, and then once the headache passed, it would just kind of be, I would feel very sluggish and out of it for the rest of the day. And this was like, I was 7 and younger when this was started happening, and then I had migraines like up until I had my first concussion, and then everything was attributed to concussion headaches instead. And I mentioned this to my mom the other day, that I had chronic migraines and like chronic neck pain as a kid, and she responded with something like, it didn't happen that often though. And I take issue with that response, because like, obviously I don't know the experiences of growing up as a neurotypical kid, but I don't think it's normal for for any child, especially a neurotypical child, to have any kind of migraines growing up. Like, that's, chronic pain is not like a normal thing, even if it's sporadic, even if it's not often. That wasn't normal. And I'm positive that it did happen because of sensory overload. It was always like the day after, or like, yeah, the day after we'd gone to whatever big sensory overloading event. Yeah. Fireworks terrified me. Combination of the loud noise and bright light, did not like it at all, just triggered my fight or flight immediately. And then I'm not sure if, honestly, the fire fear might have been partially a sensory thing, just in terms of like it being big and flashy and scary.
Like also the Joan of Arc.
Yeah, there are so many factors, but we're talking about sensory stuff. So,
yes.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else for me.
I'm not sure if this is necessarily like sensory, but just like interoception and not knowing how your body is feeling, like not knowing when your body has to go to the bathroom or if you're hungry. Like, that was a really big issue for me when I was younger, especially like knowing when I had to go to the bathroom. Like, I had very serious GI issues as a kid. I still do have GI issues now, but when I was a kid it was really, really, really bad. Like, I was very seriously constipated, had really, really intense, like, very painful gas, and I would, like, regularly just not go to the bathroom for days or a week at a time. Like, and I would be in so much pain. Like, I remember multiple times, like...
Do you want to talk about why? Like, the sensory reasons as to why?
Yeah, so I'm like, for one, it was like,
You hated the bathroom.
I hated being in the bathroom, especially the one downstairs. It was just too cold, it felt uncomfortable. I know for a fact when I was a child, I used to poop under the table that was...
In the living room.
In the living room, like, behind the couch, because that was...
More comfortable
like,
than
better
than
the bathroom on that floor, because it was just awful. Even as an adult, I won't go to that bathroom if I don't have to, like, especially if I'm not wearing socks. If I don't have socks on, I will not go in there with bare feet. I hate that bathroom so much.
That's so fair.
But yeah, like, as an adult, I'm like, oh, I know I pooped under that table. It's because that bathroom sucks. But, like, my parents wouldn't have known that.
And they were just like, this weird kid just pooped under a table.
I'm like, if they put a rug in there, I would have been fine.
Yeah.
If there was a little rug for me to put my feet on in the bathroom, I would have been fine.
Yeah.
I would not have pooped under that table. I bet you.
Yep.
I bet you I wouldn't have pooped under the table.
Literally just a very simple sensory issue that they weren't able to communicate. And and no one decided to look past the like, oh, they just wanted to poop under the table. They were like, yeah, that makes sense, and then kept going.
And then as I got older, it turned into the upstairs bathroom was the only room in the house that I had access to with a lock. My sister's bedroom door had a lock that she could use, even though she was younger than me. But my bedroom door wouldn't even close properly. It, like, didn't fit on the frame. So I never felt like I had any privacy or boundaries ever. So I would literally just stay in the bathroom for a very long time. Like, I would literally just sit on the floor in the bathroom for, like, half an hour to an hour in, like, fucking downward dog, just being like, I'm not gonna go to the bathroom. I need more time to just be alone in here before I go. And then because I would be like, I need alone time, my body would be like, sounds like you don't need to go to the bathroom anymore. Yeah. And I'd be like, okay, sounds fine with me. And then it would be like a week later and I'd be like crying, trying to like poop.
And there's so many factors to this, because I do think part of that was a control thing, because you didn't have control over so many other aspects of your life, but you did have control over whether or not you decided to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of it, when you decided not to go to the bathroom, you didn't get those body responses
telling me that I needed to go?
Telling you, hey, just an update, you still need to poop. Until a week later when your body was like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
So many
like that episode of Big Mouth called Poop Madness was very relatable. It's real. Yeah. Development.
So I was a preemie. I can't remember how premature, but I was a very small baby. I was a weird skinny baby. I don't know if you've ever seen like a skinny baby, but they're not cute. Like, babies should be chubby. They look fucking weird when they're skinny. I was severely jaundiced. They had to set me out in the sun to soak up the vitamin D as a baby. And then I just had like a checklist of developmental delays. Talking and walking were both delayed. As far as I'm aware, I didn't crawl properly. I'm pretty sure I only army crawled, like flat crawl, until I learned to walk, which was late. And then like my teeth came in late and everything. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, just like I was potty trained late, and I had a lot of trouble all through my childhood with like fine motor skills, which is a really common autistic issue. Tying my shoes was fucking impossible. I remember my mom going through multiple attempts of trying to teach me how to tie shoes the way she learned, and then one time my dad tried to teach me just his way, just as like a Hail Mary, like, let's see if this works so we don't have to keep getting this kid Velcro shoes. Partially, oh god, I hated the sound of Velcro. I was so glad when I graduated out of Velcro shoes.
So loud.
Jesus. Terrible. Just thinking of it makes me, ugh. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, my dad taught me his way to tie shoes, and it like immediately clicked, and I still don't know how to tie shoes my mom's way. I don't get it. And I'm still really slow at tying my shoes too. Like, I can do it, obviously. It's, 22 years of muscle memory at this point. But it does take concentration, and it does take me more time. And oftentimes, if I forget that I have to concentrate on tying my shoes, I'll like do it absently and then realize that I did it completely wrong. Or like missed a step, and then I'm like, I don't know how I did that, but now I have to redo it. Yeah, and then the other big fine motor thing was writing. I had a lot of trouble with my writing skills, and then on top of that, around that time is when my perfectionism shit started to kick in a lot more. So like I'd be practicing my cursive letters, and if I messed up one letter, I had rules. So it was erase the entire row, unless the row is near the very top of the page, then you have to erase the whole page. And then if you're near the bottom of the page, then you have to erase up to the half. Yeah, there were lots of convoluted rules.
OCD.
What? No. But yeah, like the only reason I remember doing that as a kid is because of the responses I used to get from it. Like, my mom used to get really pissed at me every time I'd make a mistake and then erase the whole line of writing. Cause she'd be like, what are you doing? You just erased the one you messed up. And I'd be like, no, are you crazy? I need to erase the whole line? What are you talking about? And I'd be so confused as to why she was upset, and she'd be so confused as to why I was doing this in the first place. It was just a whole mess. Yeah. I can't remember. Oh, the other facet of that was just when I was erasing, I had to erase things completely. Like, it always bothered me so much when my mom would be, like, helping me with homework or, like, showing me something or whatever, and she'd erase something and just, like, half-assed erase it so it would still kind of be there. I hated that so much. And then, oh my god. But then I would get to the point where I'd erase it too much and then it would rip through the page, so I'd have to, like, restart on a new page. Wow, this is bringing up so much stress. Oh, it's fine. It's so funny remembering all this shit. I was literally
We don't
like
even need to write on
6.
paper anymore.
Oh
You
my
just
god.
type.
Yeah, I haven't written in so long.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. So as you can imagine, homework was very complicated and took a lot longer than it should have. And I had ADHD, so I was antsy the entire time and just wanted to get outside and play the whole fucking time. Social constructs. I think the most obvious one for me is that I changed my name when I was 7, and literally at no point during any of that process did I think it was abnormal. Partially because of how my parents responded. They were very chill about it. So chill, in fact, that, like, when people did respond badly, I was confused at it. I was like, well, damn, what a weirdo. Like, why are you weird about this? I'm just changing my name. Like, it's not that hard. Like, I remember my first grade English teacher being very, very confused as to, and, like, just straight up refusing to use my name. And I was like, what? Like, if you want to call me the wrong name, like, I guess that's on you, but, like, that's weird, dude.
Like, there's so many aspects of, like, social constructs, and, like, the literally just, like, asking why is such a big example, and, like, proof of not understanding social constructs and needing that, like,
explanation,
extra
breakdown of why
breakdown
things
of
are
why
the way that they are.
And, like, why you need to do it and why you need to care.
Yeah. And that, for me as a kid, my grasp on social constructs had a big effect on my relationship with authority figures, especially in school. Like, when I moved to Canada in grade 3 and started the new school, they did the whole, like, oh, we have a zero tolerance bullying policy and blah blah blah, and, like, all their school rules. And then, like, as I'd go on and, like, stuff would happen and I'd see their responses to breaches of the rules, it would become clear to me that, like, either they don't mean what the words say they mean, or clearly there are some rules that are much more important than others. I think, overall, it just, like, it made me kind of decide which rules to follow in my own head. Because, like, I'd read the rules and I'd be like, well, obviously that one's dumb as shit. I'm not going to follow that. Like, what? And then based on the fact that the people in authority were trying to enforce some dumbass rules, I'd be like, okay, well, I can't really respect you now because you're trying to enforce some dumbass rules. Like,
yeah.
I got in a lot of clashing with, I remember one of my soccer coaches, because he would just mansplain everything, and then I would respond, like, sarcastically and, like, match my attitude to his mansplaining because he was fucking mansplaining, and then anyway.
Yeah, for me, like, a lot of it was just, like, not, like, as we've talked about in previous videos, like, not understanding, like, the need to have a specific, like, gender and sexuality and all those things. And, like, I know I definitely started, like, thinking about that stuff, like, in my head and just, like, not communicating that outward at all.
Yeah, definitely. I got asked a lot as a kid, especially, like, kids don't have filters. Other kids on the playground very often would ask me, are you a boy or a girl? And, like, I don't even remember how I would respond. I don't think I would ever respond just straight up, I'm a girl, because, like,
I don't claim that.
Who's that? What the fuck? But, like, yeah, it always confused me why they wanted to know. I was like, do you want to fucking play with me or not? But yeah.
Do you want to play?
Do you want to fucking play or not? God.
Handball or what? Yeah, and then one of the last ones that we want to talk about was just, like, emotions and stuff. Like, I know for me, another, like, I don't know if it was necessarily a special interest. I think I assumed it was, But I used to be very into, like, drama and theater when I was in school. Like, I would always be involved in, like, the school play, and I always loved my drama class because I always loved my drama teachers. My drama teachers were always great, and they were always really nice, and I was always friends with them, and I always thought they were really cool, which was a main reason why I love drama so much. Because it's not like I always had a ton of friends in the class, because I would always sit with the teacher mainly. But I literally remember just, like, being in these classes and then coming home and, like, practicing my emotions in the mirror. I would, like, practice crying or, like, being happy or being angry, or, like, whenever I was experiencing a real emotion, I would go and check in the mirror to see how it looked.
What it looked like, if it fit the
to see if it fit
profile.
and, like, looked okay, to see if other people would think it looked okay. And this entire time I was just like, ooh, I'm just being an actor. I'm just, like, perfecting the craft. Meanwhile, I'm just learning how to mask.
Yeah.
I just don't want to get bullied anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to figure out how to make my face look normal.
Yeah.
But I was just like, no, I'm just practicing for a monologue that I don't even have. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So my main thing with emotions as a kid was just that I think this is true for a lot of autistic kids. I didn't show emotion in the same way that a lot of other kids did. Most of my default emotional responses would be crying, no matter what I was feeling, whether that be angry, frustrated. Like, I happy cry now. That's like, since I started testosterone, crying is more difficult, but I happy cry more easily than I did before, which is really funny. But yeah, so, like, specifically the frustrated crying was a really common one, and that one was the fucking worst, because it would immediately trigger a kind of spiral of, like, I'm crying because I'm frustrated, now I'm frustrated because I'm crying, and then I'm crying because I'm frustrated, and then people would ask, like, why are you crying? And I'd be like, well, I'm frustrated. And then, yeah, it was just very, very difficult to stop that once it started. And I remember at one point, when I was 13 or 14, I learned something about just, like, what tears are physiologically and how it's your brain's response to having too much of an emotion, like physically having too much of that chemical that creates that emotional response in your brain. So it uses tears to cry out those chemicals. Like, microscopically, tears look different depending on what emotion you had while you were crying, which is really fucking cool. But that, like, clicked in my brain so well, and it made so much sense to me, because I was like, okay, that's what's been happening my entire life. It's not that, I mean, it is that I can't control whether or not I cry, but the reason that I can't control whether or not I cry is because I just feel my emotions at a higher degree than other people might. And that was something I knew from a young age, but I never, like, connected it with why I was crying. Because, like, yeah, I would always explain it to my mom. It's like, I just feel my emotions a lot. When I do feel things, I feel a lot of those things. And that makes sense as to why my brain would need to be like, too much, you gotta cry it out. But yeah, that definitely threw teachers off a lot. I would cry pretty much instantly at any hint of criticism, which is definitely a rejection sensitivity thing as well. Specifically from authority figures. If there was any hint of criticism, it was just immediately like, I feel like shit, I feel like a horrible person, I feel like I failed this person and they don't like me anymore. Which was obviously not true, and that wasn't what my teachers were trying to communicate. But I wasn't a neurotypical kid, so that isn't what I got from the interaction. Yeah. I know my emotional reactions to things definitely were heightened. Like, when I moved schools in grade 3, shit ramped up and I started crying a lot more, and I remember being very confused and frustrated about that. And then I got more comfortable in that school, and stopped crying as much, until at the end of grade 5, I switched to a new school for the start of grade 6, and then, you know, shit started up again. I was way more aware of, I don't know, I guess I was analyzing all my actions a lot more because I was in a new school, and I only had, like, one friend at that point. And so I started crying a lot more again, and then that made it even harder to make friends because I was the new kid that was crying all the time. Yeah. I still cry when I'm frustrated.
Yeah. No, I remember crying from, like, being tired. Just, like,
Tired
tired
cries.
cries.
Ooh.
Just, like, oh. I'm, like, also, I just, like, remember, like, having my mom literally sitting at her computer and me sitting behind her while she was doing my homework and assignments for me and literally having me dictate them to her. That's a whole other thing. But I literally just remember staying up so late working on this stuff in, like, the basement and literally just, like, crying from exhaustion and trying, like, not to have that be noticeable because I still felt like,
Well,
she's
turn
doing
around
my
and be
work
like,
for
"Oh, I'm
me.
doing
I
this for
can't be
you."
crying because you're doing my work for me, but
Yeah.
also I'm not able to do the work on my own because you're literally sitting in the
Like
chair.
me.
Like,
Yeah.
and it was just so frustrating, and I just remembered feeling like I was being such a baby.
Yeah.
Like, I literally just felt like so shitty about myself all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing as a kid was... what was I gonna say? Oh, I was very hyper empathetic. And my mom always saw this as a huge virtue and was always like, it's really good that you're so empathetic, this is going to be a really good asset in your life. But, you know, it's also an autistic trait. And it was... this happens much less now, but as a kid it was like... it was to the extent where if someone physically hurt themselves on the playground, I would literally feel it. Like, I remember someone skinning their knee in grade 3 and me literally grabbing my leg and being like, ooh, dude, I fucking feel that. Like, I'm sorry. And it was like, it wasn't me trying to be like, oh, pay attention to me. It was literally just like, I felt for the person so much that my knee would physically start hurting and I'd be like, oh, goddamn. Yeah, and then as I grew up, I would just kind of refer to myself as a sympathetic crier, because it was the same thing. Like, if someone else was having a big emotion, I would respond to that emotion in kind.
Yeah.
Not so much with, like, anger and stuff, but, like, happiness. If someone's really, really psyched about something, that's going to rub off on me, and it's going to make me happy to watch them be happy.
Yeah.
But also, if someone's having a really bad time, if someone's fucking sobbing, likelihood I'm going to tear up is pretty high.
Yeah.
Especially if it's someone that I care about, if I'm a lot more connected to the situation, obviously that just heightens it more and more. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any last examples? I think that's all I can think of for today. But, like, this is definitely a topic that we'll probably come back to in the future because there are so many different examples and stories that we can think of.
There's definitely... I think I want to talk specifically about ADHD traits in the classroom at some point, because that's like a whole world of its own, specifically how education works with neurodivergent kids and how it doesn't work with neurodivergent kids.
Yeah, I think this one ended up being mostly autism with, like, some ADHD and autism stuff in it, but this one ended up being mostly autism, so we'll definitely do, like, an ADHD specific one.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. But next week, we'll be talking about productivity culture and ableism.
See you next time.
Bye!
Bye.